Hello, dear friends. I'm asked why I am so sad, and the answer is very simple. Because of the suffering I see in Ukraine. Opinion piece. Miracles in Ukraine. Supernatural phenomena. Humanitarian cases in war. Ukrainians tell stories. They saw lightning fall from the sky. The greatest miracle is humanitarianism. First humanitarian corridor fails. Is a global internet blackout looming? Ukraine's space ark activated in Kherson. Coalition says everything would be out in 3 weeks. That leads to the ides of March of the full moon of the 18th. Maybe we'll see major events in late March. Sanctions against Russia send coal prices soaring. Christians in Russia and Ukraine fast and pray for peace. Let's start. Ukrainians are telling tales of divine intervention from the battlefield. Are they receiving any heavenly help? Stories of divine intervention are told that sound very much like Bible stories, including a pillar of fire in the night, some kind of lightning falling from the sky, and confused troops. This could be direct divine intervention, helping to save the children and the nuclear zones. On this week's episode of CBN News, The Global Lane, CBN Ukraine Director Konstantin Litvinenko explains that they are experiencing a divine intervention like some kind of lightning falling from the sky. Litvinenko said a man shared with him the story of his son who is serving in the Ukrainian army. He said that on a dark night the soldiers were holding their positions and discovered that there were many tanks and other mobile units coming straight at them. It looked like the soldiers would have trouble defending themselves. The son picked up his phone and called his father. He said in quotes, "Dad, you need to pray right now. We are in a difficult situation." Litvinenko said, so the father called other members of his church and asked them to start praying. Later, the son called his father again. He said, in quotes, "A miracle happened. It looked like an attack from a spaceship. There was some kind of lightning falling from the sky, and sparks were spreading everywhere," Litvinenko told CBN News. In the morning, they discovered that the tanks and other mobile units had been destroyed. In quotes, "All those soldiers thought maybe some kind of weapon we didn't know about did it." Litvinenko said, "It was just divine intervention. Confused troops attacking each other." Litvinenko also relayed another incident he heard about from a friend. He says the friend told him, "We are praying that they would start resisting each other, that the enemy would resist the enemy." Litvinenko says what happened next reminds him of several similar incidents recorded in the Bible. In quotes, "Another part of the Russian army, they occupied a small village, and they removed Ukrainian flags from the town's government buildings and put those flags on their tanks," he said. "And they started driving. Finally, in the evening, they met the first group of tanks." Litvinenko said both tank groups were confused by the flags and thought they were seeing the enemy. They started shooting at each other, he said. CBN News asked Litvinenko how people should pray for his family and for the civilian population. In quotes, "Let's pray that we can listen to God at this moment, he said. The most efficient thing in our country now is peace in our hearts. May our God, who is the Prince of Peace, grant peace in our hearts. And in this condition of peace, may we see the ways in which we can build the kingdom in times of war. May we be the light, the warmth, the love, and the hand of God for other people in need. In my opinion, divine providence has not taken sides in this war, but is trying to reduce cruelty and defend humanitarian values. Prayer. Christians in Ukraine and Russia are fasting and praying for peace. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine was a reason for prayer by the Christian community within the European country, calling for an end to the armed conflict. Powerful peace prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me show love. Where there is injury, pardon. When there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, let me seek not so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is giving that we receive, it is forgiving that we are forgiven, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Supernatural phenomena. In every war, there are testimonies of supernatural phenomena, and the Ukrainian war is not an exception. This time, the difference is that the situation has changed because our planet is now intervened to prevent the conflict from getting out of hand. But the greatest miracle is love and humanitarianism. The one news that has touched me the most is that a group of Ukrainians fed a captured Russian soldier and called his mother to tell her he was fine. Love always triumphs over violence. Who wants to kill each other for nothing? Where is it written that we should kill each other like wild beasts? Even animals are more civilized than we are. All war is absurd. On December 24th, 1914, English and Germans left their trench and to sing together in the middle of the battlefield, silent night, in what is known as the Christmas truce. The generals on both sides went mad and furious. Love triumphed over hate temporarily. They got ahead of the future, but the demons continued to do misdeeds. The Germans placed Christmas trees on the parapets of the trenches, and the Allies joined them in a spontaneous ceasefire. It was known as the Christmas truce of World War I. Many agreed that the truce would remain in effect on Christmas Day, so that they could see each other again and bury the dead. Each side helped the opposite side dig graves and hold memorial ceremonies for the fallen, including one in which a Scottish chaplain gave a bilingual reading of a psalm. The soldiers exchanged food and gifts that had been sent to them from home, and buttons from their uniforms to keep as souvenirs, and played soccer. Now you could call it a spring truce in Ukraine. Let's hope it happens. May peace, love, and mercy triumph over cruelty, stupidity, and madness. Space Ark. Ukrainian space ark buried in Kherson is activated according to Dr. Michael Sala. The Russian military has captured the Ukrainian port city and oblast region of Kherson, where an ancient space ark is said to be buried. According to two independent sources, the space ark is buried under the sands of the Oleski Sands National Park Nature Park. National Nature Park, which is only 25 kilometers east of Kherson. The space ark is said to be activating, and it is believed that it will eventually begin to fly on its own. Kherson is strategically important to the Russian military, as it contains a freshwater channel to the nearby Crimean Peninsula, which is the Russian Navy's only warm water port. Russia's capture of Kherson is vital to ensure the long-term viability of its Crimean facilities, but it also fulfills a new strategic imperative: gaining access and controlling the largest space ark. The discovery of a buried space ark being activated beneath the Oleski Sands provides insight into why Russia decided to intervene. Russia's desire to take full control of the space ark offers an explanation as to why Russia seized Ukrainian territory away from the disputed Donetsk and Lugansk regions. The dark side was trying to activate the ark, which they had found many years ago, buried under the sand in lower southern Ukraine. Was activated and the ark. There is a second ark in northern Russia, but Putin already controls it. Ukraine. Global impact. The events in Ukraine and related sanctions have a significant impact on the world economy and financial markets, the International Monetary Fund said. Second, Russia declares a unilateral ceasefire for the evacuation of civilians in Ukraine, so that civilians can leave Mariupol and Volnovaya. Third, negotiations will resume on Monday after breaking a partial ceasefire agreement. The first attempt to materialize the creation of humanitarian corridors through which to evacuate civilians failed on Saturday, with mutual accusations between the two sides. I think they want to use civilians as human shields. Fourth, is the conflict in Ukraine a cover for eliminating the dollar as the world's reserve currency? I leave the question. Fifth, was Ukraine a money laundering machine? Another question. Sixth, will the West blame Russia for its financial collapse? 7. Ukraine first, Taiwan second. The stage is set. 8. JP Morgan will liquidate a $454 million emerging market debt fund, which fell about 6% since the war in Ukraine. 9. Russian airline S7 cancels all international flights starting Saturday. Headlines. First, Germany on alert due to power grid failure. Second, inflation to hit record highs. Third, on February 27th, Trump said everything would be out in 3 weeks. Fourth, the round letter says that within 21 days there would be 3 major events. Fifth, that would take us to the ides of March, of the full moon of March 18th. Sixth, NASA confirms that a dust apocalypse is headed for the Americas. Seventh, wildfires in northern Florida prompt hundreds of evacuations. Eighth, sanctions against Russia send coal prices soaring. 9. Putin says sanctions resemble a declaration of war. 10th. Putin is getting rid of all Rothschild influence in Russian banks. 11th. Sanctions on Russia would only hurt the bottom line of large corporations. 12th. Russia doesn't care about sanctions because he knows that a new monetary system is about to come into effect. 13. Anonymous hacking of Russian news websites. 14th. Sweden issues an emergency broadcast system and warns of the collapse of the internet. 15. Several countries face unprecedented hunger crisis due to Ukraine war. 16. The Davos Forum presents its new totalitarian plan for digital identification. 17. Donald Trump is angry as Truth Social plummets from number 1 to 72 in app rankings. China. First, China begins food shortages and price hikes in all products. Second, Xi Jinping is preparing to turn off the CCP switch. Third, China increases military spending, oil and gas development, and sets a hard GDP target. Fourth, China may be on the verge of bankruptcy. China's recently launched price controls could affect world markets, causing product shortages and crippling millions of businesses, including shipping. Opinions. Judy Bington believes that the Russian invasion would give the coalition an excuse to insert martial law around the world and apply more than 500,000 sealed indictments and have a cover to launch the global financial reset. Second, Colonel McGregor is of the opinion that Zelensky is a puppet and claims that the false hope of a Ukrainian victory is only preventing negotiation and causing the death of more people. The colonel states that the bravest thing President Zelensky could do is to start serious negotiations. Third, a French journalist claims that the Ukrainian government is shelling its own citizens. Fourth, a French lady describes what is happening in Ukraine. In quotes, the Ukrainian government was undemocratic and political opponents were silenced. The economy was in ruins and millions could barely pay their heating bills. Fifth, a Russian-Australian man kicked off talk show for questioning media narrative. ABC Q&A host Stan Grant asked Sasha Gillis-Lekakis to leave the studio after giving his opinion, in quotes. Since 2014, Ukraine has besieged Russian population in Donetsk and Lugansk without provocation, killing an estimated 13,000 people according to the United Nations. Lekakis said. The presenter replied after a quick debate, in quotes, "Can I just say I'm not comfortable with you being here? Could you leave?" And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.